Hi, I'm Rachel Goodwin and I'm a channel and healer who loves to teach and empower others. My work is about teaching you how to make a strong and powerful connection with your divinity, your divine spark, soul, higher self, whatever you want to call it, and then bringing that divine power right smack centre into the middle of your life so that it mixes and integrates with your everyday life and your everyday self. It creates an overall rising of vibration and is where my path and yours has always been leading.
Auheia valeana oe e kahaliko puhakukui Kuhia o kaunaia a kahapu kupamoni nei Pikoi kahimana I kahapili koholuaia Ea ke kaula lo pihana e kohopu kapaliliai Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puokukui
Hey everyone, well I've just been speaking to Joel Beverly, just done a great interview and I'm really excited to be able to share this all with you. So Joel's written a book called Artemes and it's his vision that he had whilst meditating in Mexico of how we can do something different. So, I mean, come on, we all know there's big problems with the world, right? And if you're anything like me, you go, oh my God, how is this ever going to get sorted out? Kind of, we can see the problems, but then what do we do? Now, from my end, I work with earth ascension clearing, I work with vibration, I work with doing healing. But it's really nice to have a book here that combines the spiritual side of things and things are a little bit more practical and pragmatic. So here's some of Joel's bio for you. He's an edge walker who has united the worlds of spirituality and economics, combining them into a brand new system that he has called Artemes. He's not simply a visionary with a dream. He's a leader who has created a path for redefining the economic structures of the world. Beverly grew up in one of the poorest areas of the US, and he's lived through extreme socio-economic challenges firsthand. After paving a different path for himself, he became a serial entrepreneur, creating many different companies and hundreds of jobs in his community. So we have a man here who's got a foot in both worlds, and this is what we need. We need people who can dream new visions for where we're going. And, you know, as Joel talks about, it's not all going to come at once. The solutions aren't going to all come at once, but bit by bit by bit, we stand on each other's shoulders and get closer and closer. And he has a lot of really interesting things to say. So come and hear some different ideas today. Get some new thoughts perhaps and join in the conversation with us. Here it is. Hello, so welcome everyone to today's episode of Sacred You, and I have with us today Joel Beverly, who's going to be talking about his new book, Artemes. Hi Joel.
Hey Rachel, how are you today?
Well, it's really grey, miserable weather, so I'm trying to ignore all the sort of the rain on the window looking at me, and it's like it's much more cheerful in here talking to you actually.
Well, good. I would totally agree because it's gray here in Kentucky also. So yeah, it's nice to see your brightness. So
Thank you. So you're in Kentucky. Are you traveling about at the moment?
no, that's where I live. I've actually
Okay.
lived here for 46 years. That's where I'm. Yeah, it's I've never lived anywhere else. So thinking about changing that at some point, just to get out and explore a little bit. But yeah, no, I've been here all my life.
Wow. Okay. And how are things there with the lockdown and everything? Or not a lockdown, maybe?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I mean, as most everyone knows, right? It's a political year in the states, and it became a political issue, which made it complex. So some people are against it, some people are for it. But overall, like in the grocery stores and restaurants, people wear masks
Mhm.
somewhat. I actually just got back from a little vacation in Florida, and there hardly anyone is wearing masks. It's a different vibe altogether. So it's kind of even on state levels, they kind of are kind of pushing their own agenda, whichever way. Uh, but it's been interesting, for myself personally. I've kind of enjoyed it. I think it's a good thing for the world. I think it's just shaking us up a little bit and maybe awakening us to a different reality. And so overall, I think it's been a really, obviously a very hard thing for, especially people who have lost people during it. But overall, for humanity, I think in the end, it's going to be a good thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really hoping. I'm really hoping so. And yeah, so I'm thinking of two things after what you said. And one is, yeah, it has been really interesting how something which is a health crisis has become so heavily politicized. And how does that happen? How does, some virus going around become politics? But there we are. And then, yeah, the other thing is, yeah, I've been imagining that in a lot of people's minds now, even if it's unconsciously, they're going to be wondering, wow, what are we doing to the world? What are we doing to the ecosystem? Perhaps something's going wrong here. Perhaps we need to do something different. And that's why I think this is I know you didn't plan it this way, but I think it's a really good time for your book to be coming out, because I think there'll be more people who are receptive to hearing the message of your book. But before we get onto that, I wanted to hear a little bit more about you. So you're from Kentucky. Now, I'm British, and America's a really big place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that much about Kentucky, apart from I've heard of Kentucky Fried Chicken because it's a franchise. Do you want to tell us a bit about Kentucky and what it's like there?
Yeah, totally. It's landlocked, so it's not near the sea, right? Which means in the states that we're more conservative. It's the Atlantic and the Pacific coasts that are more liberal, in general, right? The larger cities, so more interior. So the state Kentucky is a conservative state overall. Sparsely populated. It's more famous, I would say. Well, KFC is definitely the thing that everyone knows, but similar to Scotland, we're an alcohol producing region of the world. Most bourbon in the world comes from Kentucky. And horse racing is the other thing. The Kentucky Derby is probably one of the most famous horse races in the world. Where I'm at is actually in the mountains, and it's more similar maybe to Wales because we had a lot of coal mining here. So a lot of unions formed around that, and a lot of just kind of hard work in this area of Kentucky that I live in. So it's mountainous, not very much farming or anything like that, and it's just kind of tough living in some ways. It's there's not much besides the coal mining, and it's kind of leaving right now. So we're the second poorest congressional district in America. For myself, when I was growing up, we didn't have running water. We didn't have a toilet. We had an outhouse, and we got water out of a well that, we carried to the house. So it's kind of a different reality than what a lot of people probably think about America, where I live. So
Yes,
yeah.
So I think a lot of us think of big cities,
Mm-hmm.
And so did you grow up in sort of living in a mountain area?
Yes. Yeah. No other house. You could see no other house from where I lived. We lived in a holler, and we were the last house. And, everybody that lived nearby were our cousins, our aunts and uncles. Double first cousins. You know what a double first cousin is?
No.
That's my mom and her sister married my dad and his brother. So genetically, we're brothers and sisters. My double first cousins are. So very remote, very tight knit. It's very different than the reality of what most people would think of in America. So, but there's a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, in each state, it's like a different country, really, in America, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It just all happens to be part of, the United States of America. But I mean, that's why it's hard for like someone like me who's not great on geography anyway, if I'm honest, but to kind of get my head around like the differences. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no doubt. It's very complex, and and as opposed to Europe, where in England it's mostly English, right? Historically, or Spaniards, right? But in the States, all this, it's a melting pot of all these different people who've come together, and it can get a little more messy at times, So it's
yeah. But I mean, even with that, because like here in Denmark, the Danes tend to refer to Great Britain as England. And that's always been one of my things. I go, actually, it's the United Kingdom or Great Britain. And they look at me and like, I'm confused. And I say, well, there's the Irish, there's the Scottish, there's the Welsh. They don't want to be called English. And because the English have a very different like social identity, really, than the other countries. Like my family, we come from like poor peasant Irish stock, and they have a huge resentment, the Irish, of like London and the Houses of Parliament like ruling it over Northern Ireland, and but that's it. When you get into all of these things, it's the same in every country. There's so many things that from the outside looking in, you don't realize all these things are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. It's actually one of the reasons I'm interested to go somewhere else and live, for a bit, and just to kind of, me and my partner are thinking about Malaysia or Croatia or Mexico, or just, going somewhere different and getting a different vibe at some point. So.
Yeah. The mountains don't sound too bad though. Is it pretty where you are?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah. Waterfalls, beautiful mountains, great hiking. It's really, it's the Appalachians that we're in. So it's, one of the more diverse places in the world, where I live, with salamanders and frogs and bats, and the vegetation is just amazing. So I'm a biologist by trade. So no, it's an amazing place to live. So
I remember reading that when I was reading your book last week. You were saying you're specialized in bats.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah, no, I've been studying bats for over 20 years. So and created a business around that, and that's what I've been doing for a long time, and that's kind of what having a business and not having any business experience or know-how, that's kind of one of the reasons I burned myself out quickly and kind of found a new space that is Artemes kind of.
Wow. So, I mean, how have you come from a boy growing up in the mountains to where you are now? Do you want to just give us a sort of a condensed version of how that happens?
Yeah, totally. Well, again, growing up very poor, and not hardly any of my family went to college or anything like that, and got lucky and had a few nice teachers in high school, and they put me on a path, and I went to college, and I had no visions of coming back home, really, but just the universe pulled me back here in some way, and I got a job as a bat biologist right out of grad school. So I came back to the area that I was from, and quickly I realized that I didn't like working for other people. It's just the companies I was with at the time just wasn't a great fit for me. So at 28, I'd learned enough about bat biology, and I was like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to work in the summer because you can do contract work for these bats, make enough money, and I'm going to go to Mexico for the rest of the year, right, and just live on the beach and kind of hang out. And I was 28 then, so I kind of started a business then, and it quickly got very, very busy. I just I'm not very good at business, but I like talking to people. So because of that, it kind of took off, and I've been riding that wave now for 18 years. But and quickly, I met my partner at the time, and we also had great visions of the community. It's a very small community here. So we opened a bar and a kind of a coffee shop restaurant, just as a space for the community to get together. We always said that we wanted the tree huggers to have a space to hang out with the coal miners, and it was a really beautiful thing for a long time. But during that, we had a lot of fun. We were having dance parties and hot tub parties on most nights of the week, and then I would get up early the next morning and do biology work, and then be up all night studying bats the next night. And it was so it was amazing. But in some ways, I was just there was no direction. I was just going. I was a hamster on the wheel, just running, and at some point, I got tired. And at that point that I got tired, a lot of things happened. My marriage started falling apart. I had an affair that quickly turned bad. My dad died, and 4 months later, my mom died. A few months later, I got skin cancer. So all these things, and it was right when I turned 40, and it was just kind of the reality that I thought was my world just fell apart, right? That structure that I had been sewn into just kind of shredded in some way. And it was from that space, and at that time, a friend introduced me to a book, Full Catastrophe Living, which is a kind of a medical type stress reduction based meditation technique that was developed in the late 70s here in the US. And now they do classes all over the world using that. And she gave me that book, and it was just kind of a eureka moment. I was like, what the fuck? Why hasn't anybody told me this shit? And it's just like, I saw the world from a different perspective. I saw the world looking at me, and I just saw the world in a totally different way than I ever had, So instead of a hamster running on the wheel, I was observing the hamster running on the wheel, and then that quickly got me on a path of wanting to learn more, right? Because in that there was freedom in some ways. So I quickly just, that moment, I read that book in just a few days, and I found a place. I just started looking all over the world for places they were doing this 8-week class. And I signed up immediately for one in Washington, D.C. And I just left, and I went there and spent 2.5 months just kind of meditating and just being. And then from there, I've just evolved. And Artemes is basically, as I was diving deeply within myself, this might be a good way to get into the Artemes vision, but it was, being a biologist, I always say that it's kind of the world's worst profession in some way, because you look around and you see the world crumbling, right? The species are going extinct. I cite an article in the book about 40% of the insect species in Europe, could be gone in 10 years, and that's happening all over the world, and it's the Amazon is getting cut so quickly. So we're doing these things that make no sense. And as a biologist, you just are just sad, but most people are just trying to get to the football game, right? And eat wings and have a beer and are just disconnected from that reality. And I've always had that issue with it. And at some moment as I was meditating and in this space, I realized that, right? We're all so disconnected from reality that's why we're doing the things that we're doing to the world, right? It's not because we're mean or evil people. We're in a societal dream in some ways. And so breaking out of that dream and into true reality is the key for the world to be prosperous and to go forward. More of us need to break out of that societal dream and wake up to the beautiful reality around us.
Yes, absolutely. And so many people are caught up in the cycle of just trying to survive and just trying to get through each day, that sort of having any resources left to worry about the fact that the world is, falling apart is just something many people can't take on. But I do think, I tend to work a lot with people who are in the New Age community, and as you said in your book, many of us are working towards our own spiritual and personal growth. And again, there's not so much left over for the bigger world out there, but it is a particular interest of mine, what's going on with the ecology and all of these kind of things. But I just wanted to take you back to something you said that I thought was quite interesting, because, from how you describe yourself, and, I can see from your personality as well, you're a very inspirational sort of person. You have a lot of energy, but you said you're not good at business. So how does that work? Is that true?
Oh, it's totally true. Well, I would say that I'm good at business. I like ideas, and I like visions of of things, changing reality. But I'm not good at numbers. I'm not good at in some ways I'm not really good at a lot of things that business requires. But I'm good at talking, and I wouldn't even say I'm good at it. I enjoy it, When I meet you, and after we're finished with the interview, I want to know a lot more about you, and that's so when I meet somebody in the business world who I work with, I'm not interested in the work that they can give me. I'm interested in them, and if you do that, you're going to be successful at whatever you do, right? And I've just innately really interested in people, so.
Yeah. So I would have to say that I don't think you can say you're not good at business. It's just those things to do with numbers and that. You just you give that to somebody else to do. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't need to be good at the numbers and all the rest of it. Like it's not the most important.
I figured that out now.
Yeah. Oh dear. So the world, yes, it is a big topic, isn't it? What are we going to do about the world?
Well, that's the so that's the vision of Artemes, right? And it comes through the book in some way, but so again, the biggest issue with the world right now is that most of us, you can use whatever word, are trapped in the societal dream, are asleep, are cut off from the true reality around them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be shitting in the bed like we are, right? We would not be doing the things that we're doing to this planet, Um, and the other biggest issue with the world is that we've created a system to where the global elite are making money hand over fist in this situation, with this sleeping masses, they're just that you just jolt them a little bit with some media and they're going to go buy whatever, or they're going to go do these things that really aren't in their interest, right? Go eat that hamburger that means that we need to cut down more Amazon to have more cows, to feed us. And the thing is, nobody is wrong in this situation. It's not like those people are evil. It's just society has evolved to this space to where we all are doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing right now. Right now the corporations are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The appropriate amount of the Amazon has been cut down, but it's at this moment that we need to wake up and to change, to get more in line with true reality. And from this moment right now to not regret anything that we've did in the past, but just in this moment to be here more, and not have any judgment on what we need to do. But if we can just individually become more in the moment, as a humanity, we will slowly start turning things around to where the consciousness level of the planet will rise to such a level that it will just be natural that we will start making the right decisions. And I think so. That's the first step, is for each of us to start turning around ourselves, and not to create a fantastical new system of anything, because if we do that now, it's just going to be another fucked up system. It's so in some ways we need to perfect ourselves, right? We need to break out of that dream. And the issue is that it's difficult, right? Because, I grew up very poor, and I know that it's, people are scrambling and they're fighting just to survive. And we've been in this dream for so long that we think it's reality, and it's really hard. And that's why, so thinking about all that together, that's why, while meditating, I was actually in Mexico, just hanging out on a lawn chair, and it hit me. It's just like, how do we create a system that both helps awaken people and also creates a new elite class, right? And the idea is this: to, we start with a beautiful seed of 11 people, and just imagine the most beautiful person you can imagine, whoever that is, and imagine those beautiful people each then selecting 11 people. And those 11 people, there's only two requirements. That one, they have to cover a specific field, whether it's government or the environment or spirituality or whatever. And the other one is they have to be outside of that societal dream, right? They had to have done the work that's broken them free of that. And they're operating more from compassion and love and in the momentness, as opposed to fear and thought. So, and then those 132 people, the original 11, the seed, and the 121, that's as it grows, those 132 will form what we're calling the Council of the Aware. And that's who will lead this kind of going forward. And then those 121 that were selected in the first kind of growth level will each choose 11. And at that level, there's also two requirements. That, if it's an environmental person, for instance, they will choose 6 of their choices will be environmental people. And this, in some ways, will be their cabinet to make choices, right? So, do we want to save the Amazon first, or should we save the Great Barrier Reef first? Making those types of decisions, they will be the ones who kind of help do that. The other 5 people could be anyone. And and that would bring in 1,331 more people. And the beauty of the system is this, Rachel, is that after only 8 layers of development, very quickly, there's how many people would you suspect are in the system? And I know you've read the book, so you this is a test.
I am so bad with numbers. It just falls straight out of my head. I'm guessing it's a lot.
It's after only 8 layers, it's 2.6 billion people. So a third of humanity, and the only requirement for those other rounds is that people have to be operating from that outside of the societal dream in some way. And the vision is and at each level, what we're going to do is we're going to give people, we're developing a cryptocurrency right now with some just really amazing high-end people that are going to have baked into this cryptocurrency exactly the things that we think are great for the world, right? Like building in a UBI that will help support the people who are most vulnerable in the world, to give them that space, right? To break free, right? Because we all need just a little bit of space, between those thoughts to start seeing the beauty that exists here, but if you can't get that space, it's impossible almost to find it. And so we're going to create a beautiful cryptocurrency, and we'll give those first 11 people a big chunk of it, and then that first layer of development, those 121, we'll give them another chunk, and on down the line to where, and this is how the elite of the world will change, right? All of a sudden, instead of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk being the richest guys in the world, it would be somebody who's much more compassionate, and on a different path and sees a different vision of the world. And at some point, we see this cryptocurrency being, very, very valuable, because we think that people are going to see the value in wanting to have a currency that supports humanity's growth. And we, based upon that, we feel that people are going to want to get into the system. So at some point, after probably I'm feeling the 4th or 5th layer of development, because up to that point, most of the people who get into the Artemes system will already be operating outside of the societal dream, right? It will be, a beautiful person selecting a beautiful person. But at some point, if I got into the system, for instance, I may know 5 people, right, who I feel are operating outside of that space. So then it would be up to me to find 6 more, right? Or to help an individual kind of understand what it is, right? And help break them out, kind of like my friend helped break me out of the dream. Mm-hmm. And it's at that point that the world will start changing. Yeah, we're calling that point the Artemic tipping point, because everything is energy, right? Everything is, everything in the universe is just matter and energy. And right now we're operating at a certain energy level, because, anger and angst are a different energy level than compassion and love. We know that, right? You go into a room and you meet 2 people, and each is operating from those 2 spaces, and you feel the energy of those beings. So what we feel is that after some point, when we start, people coming into the system are actually going from that societal dream and that hell that they're existing in to start experiencing that freedom on a small level. That's when the world will change, because the energy level of the planet is going to rise at that point. And it'll be something that could change very quickly. So that's our vision anyway, And in the end, it doesn't matter, right? It's all going to be as it needs to be. So there's no pressure.
Did you say that this came to you while you were meditating in Mexico?
Yeah, totally. My partner was actually sick and in bed, and we had a very nice room that had a balcony with lawn chairs on it, and just looking at the Pacific Ocean. And I was just having a beer and just hanging out and just kind of a lot of my meditation, and we'll get into that in a little bit, is it doesn't have to be on a cushion, right? Meditation is basically just taking in the full reality, around us, right? You're aware of the feeling of on your skin, right? The sunlight hitting that tree over there, your thoughts, your emotions, you're fully aware of everything. And that's meditation, So beer tastes best while you're meditating. And so it's was just having a beer, hanging out, and yeah, it just started hitting me, and I quickly grabbed a notebook and just pretty much wrote down the entire system probably within 2 hours.
Okay. So, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, just the outline of the entire system, right? Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting because, it's one of my personal beliefs that is using these kind of like, I don't know, if I was to group them all together, I'd probably say altered states of consciousness, whether it's meditating or journeying or when people are doing healing or whatever. But those things that come to us in those inspirational times, I think that is what will save the world, as it were. And the problem that a lot of us have is like, we see the world and we go, my God, what, like I said, what do we do about this? Because it just seems so huge. And one thing that I really liked about your book is like, I think maybe the first half of it, you explain really well what it is that's going wrong. And there's some great references in there from Marianne Williamson and other people. And it's just like what has become so heavy and dense and what is really going on. When I read all that, it was like, yeah. it was just much clearer. I work with the energy of it and with like earth healing and stuff like that, which is another sort of vibration itself. But we work, in the groups that I do, we work through all of this stuff vibrationally. And, I'm very good at being an empath and working with all the emotional stuff, but it's really great to sort of read something that lays it all out like that and just kind of says it. So I would really recommend people read your book just for that alone, just to read the first part of it and just, it's because it's quite an objective look about the way our society is structured and everything's for profit and, and just explaining some of the detail in that. I did start doing economics when I was at school, but I dropped out of school when I was 16. So I didn't get too far with it. And again, it's quite complicated, but when I read how you wrote it, it all seemed quite simple to understand. Actually, I thought you did a really good job.
Well, thank you, and good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's great to hear. And what you said there, the idea that what's going to save the world is going to come out of that space. I call it a dance, kind of, right? It's a dance of you kind of get into a relaxed space and you're experiencing everything, right? Your thoughts, your emotions, everything, right? Anything that you can experience, you're just with. And in that space, there's something that happens, right? I can tell that you know what I'm talking about by the look on your face. There's something that's beyond words that happens there. And yes, and that's when things start coming to you, right? That's when true reality and freshness is available. And because the thing is, the old shit of the past, which is everything that we think, right? Every thought that we think, we've been conditioned to think that. And it is not going to save us, So we've got to move beyond the thought and get to that dance to where things are just popping up and it's all fresh. Yeah. And in that freshness, will be the thing that saves us, whatever that is.
Absolutely. And that's it. And it's like, I know all the people are out there that are needed to find the solutions to all of the problems that we have with our environment and with our economy. And it's just a question of kind of like what you're talking about, of getting to the right tipping point where they can access that in themselves and then be able to bring these solutions out. So every time I see somebody, there's another guy like a lot, Charles Eisenstein, I think his name is, and he has done quite a lot of talks and things at the Findhorn community that I was mentioning to you in Scotland, because they teach quite a lot of like eco courses up there. People, go there to learn how to build houses and that sort of in a way that's ecological and friendly for the environment and stuff like that. So, and it's like the more people that come out with solutions, the more people can get a picture in their mind of like, oh, things can be different. We don't have to just, because of the amount of people that just enslave themselves just so that they can keep buying new things. It's just, to me, it's just like, I just go, I mean, it is kind of like that in Denmark. My son, when he was 5 years old, he went to the school across the road. He's not there now because he's been diagnosed with autism and ADHD now, and he's at a special needs school where he's much happier. But when he went to the school across the road, they gave him an iPad when he was 5 years old. All the children in that class got given Apple technology at 5 years old. And I was just appalled. I was just like, what kind of budget are they spending in this part of Sjælland in Denmark? And just like, it's just incredible. Those children do not need an iPad, but that's how it is in Denmark. Everybody, that's how it looks to me. I feel like I'm the only person who has an Android phone. It's like, but just like they feel like that standard of living is necessary for them. So people they work really hard. Both parents work and they spend a lot of money on stuff. And it's like, I don't get it.
Well, they've been trained well.
Yeah.
We've each been trained. We're only like a accumulation of all our experience, right? And at this point in time in your little town in Denmark, they've been trained it's a capitalist world, and they've been trained to have the most current technology, and that's the reality, right? And if you don't have that, you're something's wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we need to break free of, right? It's like that you don't need that. It's fine if you do have that, but you don't need that to
absolutely
fulfill.
And I don't really mean to pick on, where I live in Denmark. Just this is what I see. And I know this is the reality in a lot of, better off countries. And I mean, I worked as a psychiatric nurse many years ago, and I worked in private hospitals, and I also worked in like a prison environment. So I saw both ends of society. And I also worked in the health service, so I saw the middle as well. But it was 7 years of like watching people from every different strata of society with mental health problems. And I came out knowing that it did not matter where you were in that social strata, you were going to have problems. You were going to have mental health problems. I saw people coming from really wealthy families who were so emotionally poverty stricken, it was untrue. Their lives were so intensely miserable. And then I also saw people who had nothing, and that was also very miserable for them. But it was kind of like, I was so surprised to see that having money or not having money, it kind of like, it wasn't the thing. It wasn't the thing that was actually causing the problems. It was like, it was our own, what was going on inside of us,
Yeah. Well, I would say that both situations cut you off from your true self, because it's you create thoughts in your head. I would say being rich is worse than being poor in some ways, because being poor, you don't have a phone, or you're forced to be a little bit more in the moment. Although when you're very poor, it's easy to get trapped in the thought process of like, why am I poor? And I'm lesser than, right? Both have issues, but that's the problem, is we get cut off from our true self. So for anyone in that situation, in my opinion, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but for them to heal, they need to touch their true self, right? To cut through that training that they've had their entire life, right? And society, we've been training ourselves for thousands of years to be exactly where we're at right now. And it's going to take some work and some energy to move beyond that. But that's really the step that we need to take if we want to get where we need to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then, if you're a person who can't get enough to eat that day, they're not going to be able to like focus on retraining anything. And, that's where us as a society, we need to help each other and not allow that to happen. There's people who haven't got enough to eat, or haven't got, enough to live on. And like, So I grew up in the UK, and I'm 50 now. And, when I was a kid, the rich poor divide was smaller than it is now. It's grown much larger over those 50 years, and that's really heartbreaking. It's like, come on, so what? We're going backwards now, are we? It's like, no, this can't be right. We have to do something about this.
Yeah. I'm 46. We're in a very similar space, and in our lifetime, things have really gotten much worse. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, there's a greater tax base, for our countries to do good, to help poor people out, to help, put them on a path to where they could succeed. And that's slowly, especially here in the States, been whittled away for the last 40 to 50 years, to where it's just much less of a tax base now. And that's the thing, is if you have the biggest megaphone, you can really push, and even, again, I grew up very poor, and some of my very poor family, when they see like helping other people out, even though, I grew up on government cheese and, and things like that, they say, no, those people need to help themselves, they need to do it themselves. And it's just, we've been trained so well to hate people who have less. And you're right. It's we need to help people out, to give them an opportunity to have just a little bit of space to see a greater potential. And the thing is, if we do that, then society is just going to take off, because these people are a drag on society, right? They're confused, and they are holding us back in some ways, because they're not reaching their full potential. And that's the majority of humanity is in that space. It's not like Denmark or the United States, right? It's most of the world is in a tough space to where they're a drag. So if we could take this yoke off of their shoulders, and they could just kind of stand up straight and just kind of bloom into who they totally are, and that would be most of humanity be doing that at the same time. And it's at that point that we'll just create a new world, and things we'll all get, pointed in the right direction, and we'll kind of move to where we need to be. We'll take our rightful space as, humans, and quit acting like confused animals. At this point, we're worse than animals, right? Because we're very, very confused by our thoughts. An animal will go and do exactly what it needs to do to survive. We're confused. We need to slow down and become unconfused.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking about this cryptocurrency thing, right? And I know nothing about cryptocurrency. I just read it and I just go, oh God, what is this? What is this all about? Tell me in like a really simple way, what is cryptocurrency?
Well, the original vision of cryptocurrency is that it's outside of of a central authority in some ways, right? So currently we, the dollar, the euro are printed by central banks in those places, and the same with Russia or China or wherever, and so they control it. So the idea was basically these computer geniuses, the question was, how do we figure out a currency that humanity can have, that we can control, that's outside of these powers that be? And that's what it is. So the way they did that, and there's a number of different ways they do it, but basically it's computers around the world, like Bitcoin, for instance, which was the first cryptocurrency. You have, if I had Bitcoin and I want to send it to you, which I could right now, send it to you in Denmark and you would get it in seconds. For that to make sure that's secure, there's all these computers around the world that basically validate that single transaction. So it's not just one space, right? Right now, we trust that middleman to make that for us, right? The bank. And the bank will always take a cut out of it, right? With this system, you're kind of taking out that middle person, and it's direct person to person. And that's kind of one of the interesting things about it. But the beauty that I see in it, though, is that you can create that, what I just said, but you can bake into it beauty, right? You can, from a space, right? You get into that dancing space of meditation, and you're like, what is the beauty that we could put into this? And you bake it into it, and then it's computer code, and it's the closest thing we can get to a trustworthy system that can be produced.
Where does it get its value from?
Where does gold get its value? Because there's a group of people say it's valuable, right? Whether it's a shiny piece of jewelry or whatever, right? But as I said in the book, salt, 2,500 years ago was the most expensive commodity in the world. But only until we decided how to get it out of the oceans did it become different. So it's a cryptocurrency is valuable because people see the beauty in it and the potential in it. For Bitcoin, for instance, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins in the world. At that point, the computer code shuts down and there's no more. So in that way, it's much more finite than gold, even, right? Or something else, or a dollar or a euro, which, especially at this point, central banks are just printing it out left and right, to try to get us through this pandemic, right? So, so that's one of the things that people see as valuable, right? There's only going to be so much of it in the world, and thus it has value. The other thing that makes it valuable is, again, as I said before, right now I could send to you Bitcoin and it'd be there in a few seconds. And then you could go get some fruits and vegetables to have for dinner tonight.
But how could I use that Bitcoin to pay for it if the Danish supermarket doesn't take Bitcoin?
Well, that's changing quickly, but currently you would just get on an exchange. You just, at this moment, the way it works is you just tie your bank account into an exchange, Coinbase, or a number of other exchanges. And, so you, on this exchange, you can buy Bitcoin, but you can also sell it, right? So I could send it to you, to your Coinbase wallet, and then you would simply just transfer that to dollars and then go use your debit card to get your fruits and vegetables. So it's that easy, again, if you're trapped in Malaysia and you need to get out and you need some money, it's a different world now. You can just get it immediately on your phone, and that's why it's valuable, right? It's like, it's creating a paradigm to where you're not trapped, you're not 1982 and you're not getting traveler's checks as you go to, on your little vacation to wherever, it's a different reality. I had a friend who went to Japan and he only used cryptocurrency on his entire month-long trip there, just to see if he could do that. And so it's the wave of the future, whether people see it yet or not. It's going to be something like that.
Mm.
And for our teams, but the problem with Bitcoin and most cryptocurrency is the market has got cornered again, right? The current market is cornered by the United States and Europe and other rich countries of the world. The Bitcoin now is cornered by, ultra wealthy who bought in early and are now kind of controlling the market of that. That's the difference with our teams. We want to not make people buy it all. We want to give it, to people. And, our idea is to be inclusive rather than exclusive. And part of the way that we're going to do that is, the original 11 that we talked about, two each will be on each populated continent of the world, except for Australia, which will get one, Australia, New Zealand. And the idea here is then it will just start growing from those centers, right? So Africa is not going to be left behind like it has been left behind, poor areas of Asia and South America. And our vision is to spread it to poor communities as much as possible in those places to where all of a sudden it's going to be more of an equal world, So that's our vision.
Mm. It's really interesting. That's probably the first time I've sort of got some vague notion of what cryptocurrency is about, because, like I said, I'm an energy worker and, I tune into things as energy, and our current money system has so many negative thought forms within it. So I work with like a rune system. And, it's a rune system from like a long, long time ago, before we had money or anything. But there is a rune in it that represents like wealth. It actually means domesticated cattle. And it looks like an S that's sort of where the arms are going up, and it's called Fae. And like when I tune into the energy of that, I can feel the abundance in that rune. But it doesn't have, I'm sorry to keep saying this word and swearing, it doesn't have all that shit that our money system has in it. So when it comes up and I can talk to someone about, their creativity and their ability to, manifest stuff for themselves, I can talk through this energy of the rune Fae without having to get into all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just, I know that, it's not a good thing to hate money and all the rest of it, like if you want to have it. But on the other hand, it is difficult for me to like energetically connect with the money system because energetically it's, my God, it's got some really severe problems. So it is interesting to hear about another system. But I guess do people buy cryptocurrency with money though?
Yeah. Currently, it's just, you can exchange, just like gold again, right? If you have a pound of gold, you can go exchange it for whatever amount of money. If you have one Bitcoin, right now you could go exchange that for $35,000. So it's so you could just exchange it however you like. It's I've said a few times that if our teams is successful in the way that I see it potentially be successful, there will be no need for money. We'll all be operating in unison together. And if you break free of that societal dream, you don't really need a Ferrari. You don't really need that fancy piece of equipment when you're 5 years old. It's and so at that point, money will have a different reality, and we'll just start taking care of ourselves instead, right? We'll feed everybody. We'll have clean water for everybody, and money will be much less, and it may not even be a thing anymore.
Yeah, absolutely, and that sort of takes me right back to sort of like my original joy when I was a kid, watching The Next Generation of Star Trek with Captain Jean-Luc Picard in there, and on Earth in that time that they're talking about in this science fiction program, nobody has money. People are nurtured for who they are, and they bring out their gifts and share their gifts with society, and there's no need for money because everyone is being nurtured and cared for, and people just give what they have to give. And so I must have been, I don't know, about 12 or something when I was watching The Next Generation. I was like, oh yeah, that's and I'm a little bit sad because Star Trek has sort of turned into quite a violent program now where everyone's shooting each other. But yeah, that's sort of like my original dream from Star Trek that you're talking about there.
Well, yeah, that's so cool that it's on Star Trek, but it's totally, you can imagine it, right? Again, it's, if we all break free, we don't need anything, right? If you totally break free, you don't need anything, and you kind of just want to be, and you just want to be in a meditative space of totally experiencing. And when you're doing that, you want to talk with people and bring up beautiful things, but you don't really need a lot of other things. And that we could get there, right? And if we got there, imagine, again, just like on Star Trek, everybody's working in unison to do a common thing, right, for humanity, and it's at that point that we may be like Star Trek and we start exploring the universe, right? Because we're all working together. And if all humanity puts their energy and their vibration in one direction, as opposed to it being nationalistic and divided at this point, we'll kind of do whatever we want to do, and we'll create whatever beauty we want to create, and we'll just kind of start becoming explorers. I think it's our next step.
Yes, absolutely. I had one thought though when I was reading your book and you talked about the first 11 people. Who's going to choose the first 11 people? Where's it going to start?
I trust you, Rachel. I'm going to let you choose those people.
And also, those first 11 people who you would want to choose, would they want to be spiritual leaders?
Yeah, it's right. Because most spiritual people just want to hang out and chill, right? They just want to be in the moment and just like enjoying that vibe, But I would also say this, that it's when you get to that space also, there's some people who like to enjoy that vibe and just kind of explore, right? And Artemes is a way to explore reality. And I can see some people being interested in that. But that is our big thing, right? I always, when people say, well, who are you talking about? Like, I'm like, the Dalai Lama, right? It's like, well, how are you going to get the Dalai Lama? And that's, and the way we're going to do that is by having conversations, and, like right now it's just on our social media, through the book, people are just reaching out and they want to be a part of this. And they're asking, how do I become a part of this? And the way is to be a part of the conversation, because, I don't have all the answers, our team doesn't have all the answers, but together we do, and it's like going forward, I feel like you'll be a part of the conversation with us, Rachel. And that's how it's going to grow. It's just by people being a part of the conversation and it spreading, and then people seeing the potential. And it may not be the Dalai Lama, but it may be the most, another beautiful being, somewhere in Asia, that'll be one of the two that sees the potential in the system and wants to explore reality through the Artemes angle,
Well, I definitely think that, having more and more of these conversations is the solution, because then it opens up our minds. And even if we have a conversation where we think, no, that's not it, quite often then something else will come into our head where we think, that instead, it gives us something to hit up against anyway. So just having the conversations is just the start of how we're going to solve this. And it takes away that burden of, we can't do anything. This is, insoluble. Of course, it's not insoluble. I believe we're sparks of the divine. And each of us have got our, own part to play. And together we can do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we just, we need to let people know that they're sparks, right? They need to realize that each of us individually have to realize that we're these beautiful spark that you talk about. And when that happens, that's when the energy will change, and again, that we'll change the world in that way. We'll change reality.
Well, I'm really excited to have had this conversation with you today. And I believe it's the day Donald Trump has left office. Is that right? And Biden has come in. Is that true?
He's got 3 hours. I'm sure he's
Okay.
he's clawing to not get out of the White House. It's but yeah, at 12 o'clock it's supposed to happen. So it's
a historical day today for the good old USA.
It is. It's again, I don't hate on Trump like a lot of people do. He's just a product of the society that he was raised in. So I have compassion for him, and and I hope that this time is the space that he's going to have after the election will be time for him to, heal in whatever way he needs to heal and maybe see a new light. I hope that he can get there. But yeah, no, it's an historic day, and it'll be interesting to see what direction the country goes in forward. Yeah.
So if people want to see more about your work, there's the book that's on Amazon, isn't it? So it's Artemes. Is that right?
That's it. Yep. Artemes. Yep.
And you're on Facebook with the same name?
Yes. And if you go to our website, that's probably the easiest way, because if you go there, you can get access to the book and the Facebook and Instagram and other things. And the address is www.artemes.global. So.
That's nice.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So yeah, join the conversation. Reach out. People can find me there, to message on social media and stuff, and be a part of the conversation, push into true reality, and just let's see what we can create, Oh,
that's brilliant. Well, thanks for your time today. It's been great talking to you.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, you're awesome. And I appreciate you giving me the time.
Okay. Thanks very much. And bye, everybody. Bye for now. Bye.
Ikahimana ho ikahapili
ko aloha ia. Ea ke kaula lo pihi ana he kohopu ka palili ai. Haina mai ka puana e kahaliko pua kukui. He noa no na ka ui